Welcome back to another episode of Your Bookshelf Besties. My name's Ashley.
And I'm Brandy.
And today we're going to be wrapping up our September reads, kind of going over what we read, listened to, little tiny synopsis, and then giving our ratings. And essentially, would we recommend them or not, I think.
Yeah, what would we recommend? What we rated it?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I read 8 books. I listened to 4 on audio, and I read 4 in physical form. So I'll start. The first audio that I listened to was The Inmate by Freida McFadden. I thought this book was good, I think. I think. It was a book about, she's a nurse, right? A nurse.
She's a doctor.
A doctor who gets a job at a prison where one of the inmates is someone from her past. And then you just go through the storyline of everything that happened and who essentially, it's a whodunit kind of thing. Who was the murderer, really? And you find all that out. I am not a huge fan of Freida McFadden. I don't know why I keep reading her books. I think they're very addicting because they're so short and quick reads. I gave it 3 stars. Would I recommend this one? Probably not this Freida McFadden book. I don't think so. And then my next read was Wait for You by Jennifer Armentrout. I really liked this book. This is about a young girl who goes off to college and kind of is leaving her family because she has also had something that happened in her past. And she wants to get away from her family in Texas, so she goes to West Virginia and she meets this college guy who everybody wants. And I really loved both of the main characters in this book. I thought it was cute. It was easy read, quick. I gave it 5 stars. I would recommend this book. I know you tried it and you just couldn't get into it. I think this was exactly what I was needing at this point when I picked it up.
Sometimes it just be like that.
It was just what I needed, right? Then I read this one, The Fear by Natasha Preston. This book was really good. I have a really bad habit of reading the end of a book first, so I kind of always know who did it. But had I not done that, definitely would have kept me on my toes. Definitely would have been like, ooh, that's a good twist. I will probably read more books by her. I really, really liked this book. I'm just looking at my notes. I gave this a 4 stars. I definitely would recommend this book, and I think I'm going to read her next book, which was The Twin, which they're not related. It's just other books by her.
I'm gonna have to check her out. I don't think I've even ever heard of her.
So I didn't say what this book is about. Sorry. This book is about a viral meme that goes around their school. Essentially, like, what is your biggest fear of dying? Like, what is it? How are you most afraid to die? Essentially, what is your biggest fear? And then people in the school, it's in a high school, they start getting murdered by their fear. So one was she was afraid to be drugged behind a car and die that way. It was what's the worst way to die? Yeah, and that's what happened. So I thought this was really good. This was a really good book. And then after that, I listened to In the Likely Event. I gave it 2.5 stars. I didn't love it. I don't like military romances.
That was also one of the books that I read for September, and I would have to agree that I did not. I gave it a 2 star. I am also not a fan of military, but I just feel like it was really cheesy. And I couldn't believe it was the same author as Fourth Wing. I know that one's fantasy and one is, not, obviously, but some of the writing style seemed way off, not something I would have ever been interested in.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that it was the same author as Fourth Wing. For me, if you loved it, I'm glad you enjoyed the book, but for me, it just was, I was shocked that it was the same author as Fourth Wing, honestly.
Yeah. So it's about, just a quick little overview. If you haven't heard of it, which you probably have by now, because I feel like it went really viral on TikTok because it's by Rebecca Yarros. It's about a woman who goes over to, is it Iraq or Afghanistan?
It's Afghanistan.
Ooh,
I don't know.
Somewhere in the Middle East, to essentially find her sister who has gone missing. And she finds this guy who she had this thing with in the past. and they kind of work together to find her sister, and then her ex-fiance gets involved in all this other stuff. I didn't really like it, so
I was bored. Characters were cheesy. Yeah. I was not invested in the relationship, so that would be a no for me.
Yeah. So after that, I read The Lost Apothecary. I loved this book so freaking much. I gave it a 5-star. I love historical books that are set in the past. I love books that are set in London. This is about a woman who owns an apothecary that is selling poisons to women to poison men who have wronged them. And then you get the timeline of the present, where a woman in present day,
also wronged by a man,
goes to the UK, and she finds a vial from the apothecary, and she starts to piece all the puzzle pieces together about what happened in the 1700s. 1800s? 1700s? 1700s, yep. So I read that one, and then after that I read my book club book, which was 20 Years Later. This book had so much potential, but it had like 40 million storylines in it. It did not need that many storylines.
That's the worst.
Had so much potential with just the one storyline that it was going for, but essentially it just ties in present day, again, dual timeline, present day, and goes back to 9/11, where a lady has died in the attacks on 9/11, and they find her tooth, and then the news anchor of like a crime show starts piecing together about this lady's life in the past and how she died, and just starts digging up all of these things that happened. So the lady that died at 9/11, her lover, I guess, he was married, so she was the mistress, was murdered, and she was on trial for his murder, and then she died in 9/11, and then it just kind of like went flat. Like nothing happened with solving the case of how this guy died, because 9/11 happened, and that became like the forefront of the news. And then this lady starts piecing everything together, like 20 years later. She starts piecing everything together and essentially solves that. But so those are the two storylines, but there are also like other storylines that didn't need to be there. So I gave this one 3.75 stars. It was a good book. Would I recommend this book to read? Maybe not. I don't know. I think it was all right. And then the last book I listened to was Funny Feelings, and that book was pretty cute. It was a quick rom-com. It's about a comedian who goes on tour with other female comedians, and they're like these 3 female comedians that are running this show because they're all women. And then she has this guy who she met a couple years ago, who was like her like manager, not really her manager, but he like helps her, and they fall in love essentially along the road. So
was it funny? Is it funny?
It was not. I
feel like I need humor in like romantic comedies. I need humor, and I also need something that's gonna make me cry.
I think it was supposed to be fun. I give it 3 stars. Would I recommend it? If you're looking for something very light to read, sure. I felt like it wasn't funny to me, but I feel like she tried to be funny, where she just talked about, the main character kept going on and on about like how she's like not feminine, and she like burps and does all of these things, and maybe other people
a quirky girl.
Yeah, maybe other people think that's funny, but I was just like, it's life, like you're just human, so like we all do that, right? So yeah, but that was it. That was my 8. I think I had a pretty good reading month. It was kind of slow for me, which I know is kind of crazy because it was still 8 books, but I found myself in a pretty big slump the 2 weeks that I was on vacation was kind of hard for me. But the fact that I was on vacation for 2 weeks and still read 8 books, I still think is pretty good. Yeah. What about you? What's your wrap up?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I have 14. Some of them she and I both read, so I won't say much on those ones. I gotta pull up my list. So the start of the month of September, my first read was Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. I know that this has been popular all over TikTok. I totally understand why. It's so well written and it's perfect for anybody who's like a true crime junkie. For me, I give it 4 out of 5 stars just because even though I like true crime, I don't know, like something about this was just like off. I don't know if it was the pornographic like murder, sex ring thing going on that I didn't like. I don't know, something about it. It's just like maybe it was just that disturbing that I was just like, ugh, you know. But it was well written, and I mean, it was just what happens in the story is just awful. We have these two sisters who are estranged, and basically the death of one of their husbands brings them back together, and then they kind of just discover the truth about their other sister who was missing 20 years before and assumed dead, but nobody ever got any answers on that. So it's just kind of them discovering the truth. So would I recommend it? Yes, but check trigger warnings. Know that it's extremely graphic. It's pretty disturbing, honestly. It really is.
I really want to read that book.
Yeah. I feel like you would probably love it. Yeah. I don't know. I'm like so surprised that like just to me.
I have it. Yeah. I just haven't read it yet.
Yeah, you need to read that one and let me know what you think. I read None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. I really enjoyed this book. I was asking the whole time, like, who's the bad guy? What's going to happen? There's, like, a lot of weird things placed throughout the book. Like a teenage daughter, like someone who's not even 18, a 16-year-old girl is just runs away, and they just kind of leave it at, like, I don't know where she's at. Huh. You know, and they just mention about how this daughter, like, something happened and she ran away. So they just mention that throughout the book. You're like, what happened with that daughter? They also mention throughout the book that the woman's other daughter is also a teenager living in her bedroom. She does not come out, and the mom is feeding her baby food. Like, so it's just like all of these weird things that you're like, what is going on?
Does it all get pieced together?
It does ish. So this is more.
I love Lisa Jewell books.
Yeah, I do too. This one, I'm not gonna lie, the ending didn't quite wrap things up to me in a way that I would have found cohesive enough for me. You know, I thought that we definitely needed something a little bit stronger of an ending, a little bit more definite. But we have the two main characters who meet because they're birthday twins celebrating their birthday. And one of them is a really successful podcaster, and the other one is just like living this super mundane life. But she goes to the podcaster after researching her and is like, I have a life story for you that you need to hear, you know. And then you're like, yeah, you do. You have a daughter that ran away at 16 and you don't know where the heck she is, but we know something happened with her and something's going on with your family. Then you have another teenage daughter who's eating baby food. Like, yeah, I'm interested to see what that family secret is, you know. So that one I would recommend. I would probably preface it with the ending is a little disappointing, but I really enjoyed like 95% of the book, and I didn't hate the ending, but I think the book deserved something a little better. So my next read was Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. I loved this book so much. It is the perfect amount of cozy, humorous. We've got a perfect love interest. We've got a main female character who starts off as kind of hard to like, but obviously she grows empathy and learns to chill out, so she's a lot better towards the end of the book. And I think my favorite part is just her on this adventure in the middle of nowhere, where she is making like the first comprehensive book on fairies. And these fairies are the actual like folkloric fairies. They're not just like the fae in the books that we like. They're like the brownies, the ones that are kind of scary looking, the ones that you don't want to make bargains with or do, you know, with the risk of what can happen with that. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book. It was really, really well written. I will say some of the names and towns are really hard to follow because they're like written in like I think they're in northern somewhere by somewhere north and
somewhere up there.
Like yeah, so the town names are wild. Everything is kind of hard to remember or pronounce. So I was just kind of doing the blah blah blah, you know, for some of those names. But it was a really really good book and really well written.
And what did you give that one?
I gave that one a 5 out of 5. So I think that was the only 5-star read I read last month. So I loved that book.
So you would definitely recommend it?
I would definitely recommend it. For people who know that they are into like fantasy and stuff, because otherwise, probably not for you. And then I also read Never Lie by Frida McFadden. This book, so I will totally agree with Ashley. Like, this book was so engaging from the beginning of the book, pretty much till the end. I was engaged. I like irritated the whole time, saying like, really, would somebody say that? Really, is that how we got to this crazy twist? But still, like, I still finished it. So I will say, like, her books are obviously catchy. I see why people read them.
She's very popular. Yeah. What'd you give that one?
I give this one 3.5 stars out of 5. And I would recommend it to somebody who likes mystery thrillers and just wants something easy to read. You know what I mean? I think I would recommend her books. I might have to give a warning just for my own peace of mind, just to be like, her writing is a little subpar. Some things are really cheesy. Sometimes they're a little out there, but honestly, you will probably really be wanting to know what happens next, what's going on, you know, trying to piece things together. I know I was texting you being like, is it this person? Is it this person? Like, you know, I was engaged. Yeah. Was I annoyed like the whole time? Yes. But did I finish it? Yes, I did. So do with that what you will.
I liked that one a lot. I thought that was probably the reason why I will read more of her books, was because of that one. If I would have only read The Inmate, I would not have read more. But because I read that one in August, I have a couple more of her books on my TBR, I'm not gonna lie.
So I'll read them if you are like, you'll never guess this. Because like, if I know how she writes already, I'm like, okay, my goal is just to see how out there we were with this one. So my next one is Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. This is an autobiography about a Korean American woman whose mother is diagnosed with cancer, and it kind of just follows her navigating her life with her mom being terminally ill and her trying to figure out her place in this world, you know, with her mom, without her mom. And they really emphasize the importance of food in this book. Like, a lot of it is they're talking about food. Their bonding time was with food. They had a really rough relationship, but they always were able to come back to food. So, I mean, it was really, I was entertained. I was interested. I can definitely, you know, connect with the author and just her experience of, you know, me being Mexican American and kind of the differences between, you know, maybe people who are just plain American. I mean, I am American, but you know what I mean?
You mean me.
Yes. You know, so I totally understood with like just kind of feeling like not American enough, not Mexican enough. She definitely touches between, you know, kind of this dual thing going on for her. So I think I gave it a 3.5 star out of 5. Or actually, no, I think I gave it 4 out of 5. So I would recommend it if you're into autobiographies. It was really well written. Like I said, she does get really redundant with the food talk and stuff. And I think she's actually a famous singer, I want to say. So it does talk a little bit about like her working on her music career too. But that's a very subplot of that. So that was one of my reads. And then I had A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking by T. Kingfisher. I think I am just a little obsessed with this author. I'm like reading at least one book by her a month. And I just love that she just has such unique ideas. It's very refreshing. I mean, the plot of this story is a girl. She's like a teenage. I think she's actually like 12 or 13. She has magic powers that basically all her powers does is control like bakery items, like dough, like scones, like any bakery item she controls. She can control it. She can manipulate it. She can get it to do what she wants. And then her familiar is like a sourdough starter kit, which is, it sounds so out there. No, like,
you're making me want to read this book because I love baking so much that I'm like, okay, I have to read
this. So but it sounds out there. Like, I'm like, who would want to read a book about a girl whose only power is bakery items? You know, but it turns out she's able to make a pretty compelling story about this, with her having to save her town, being able to control bakery items. So right. It's very lighthearted, but it's still really good and creative. So I give that 4 out of 5. I just really like that author. She gives me something I didn't know I needed every time. And then we have The Perfect Child by Lucinda Berry. And we've kind of already touched up on this one a few different places, but this one was really engaging and had a lot of promise.
I definitely missed that one.
Oh, that's okay. You can just tag along with mine.
I also read that one.
Yeah, you can just tag on to this one. So we just have these two people, a couple who can't have their own child, and they both work in healthcare. And here comes this abused child that they decide to take in as a foster kid, and then they want to end up adopting her. It turns out that she is not mentally well, and just kind of the repercussions of what happens when you let this little girl into your life.
Yeah.
And I gave that one, I think I gave it a 3.
I gave it a 3 out of 5. I just checked my sheet.
Yeah,
I gave it a 3 for sure.
Yeah, this one had so much promise.
So much potential. The end fell flat. If you've seen the movie The Orphan, book form. But yeah, it fell flat. There was so much potential in the beginning of that book.
Yeah, I was like just devouring the book just to come to the ending and be like, you've got to be kidding me.
Which, if you want to hear us talk more about that book, we do have a podcast up already about The Perfect Child. So if you want to hear us go into depth about that one, go ahead and tune into that episode, which I think is episode number 2.
Yes. Yeah. And then I also had Belladonna by Adeline Grace. And again, I loved this book.
I just finished that book, so it's technically an October read, but yeah. I started it in September.
You started a while ago. Yes, you did. I really loved this book. I was pleasantly surprised to see that this was more of a paranormal mystery than it was like a fantasy romance. Like, because I went in with the thoughts that this was like a fantasy romance.
It was kind of all things, but I think is why I absolutely loved that book, which I guess when we do our October wrap-up, I'll talk about my opinions, but it was mystery, romance, and fantasy all in one.
Yeah. And paranormal. Like, they had, like, ghosts. They had, like, spirits. Yes, so I really liked it.
I think it hits every aspect. Like, how could you not love that book?
Yeah. So I thoroughly loved it. It's about this girl who is just untouchable by death. She can't die, even though she's tried multiple times to kill herself so that she can have a conversation with death and be like, what is going on? Why are you killing all my family that I have to live with just to be sent off with another family member until she can get her inheritance? And I mean, she never really, I don't know. That book was just really good. I think everyone should read it, even though.
Highly recommend that one.
Yeah, highly recommend.
Would you give it?
I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. There's still some things that I'm like, they needed work. I think the mystery part should have been a little bit better. Yeah. You know, that's why I'm like, I didn't think it was the person it was, because I was like, no, like this, it's not going to be that obvious. And it was.
And we will have a full episode podcast on Belladonna coming up as well. So stay tuned for that.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll go into depth.
But yes, I would recommend that one.
Was that your last read?
No, I have a few more.
Clearly, you had a great reading month.
It was okay. And then again, in the likely event, but since she touched on that one, I won't cover it. I did not like it. It was too slow paced for me. Don't like military romances, and the writing was not it for me.
I am not a fan of military.
And then I also read Go Hex Yourself by Jessica Clare. This book, I was really interested in reading because I'm obsessed with witchy vibe books. And it was a really cute book. Our main character ends up getting hired for a job to be a witch's familiar, but she doesn't know that. because she doesn't know that, like, I guess being a familiar runs in her family's blood, and she was only able to see this advertisement because she had that familiar blood in her. So she ends up getting this job, and she's just like, wow, this lady is really aloof, like, and really believes she has powers and all of this stuff. So it's really cute. And then, of course, she has the grumpy, dark love interest that comes into the older woman's nephew. And when he comes into the picture, she's just like, I hate you, and the banter, you know. And
fudge. Anyways, it was a good book.
It was okay. The ending was really cute. The middle is a little meh, but the ending was cute. I gave that one probably a 3 out of 5 stars.
Okay.
And then my next one.
We're just rolling with it here.
I know. I'm like, I've got so many books on my brain right now. So then I had Vampire Hearts and Other Dead Things by Margie Fuston. And this book, I really like the idea of it, is that everyone knows that vampires exist for like a little bit in time. They're out and about, they're doing interviews, and then one of them, I think, goes a little nuts, and then they go back into hiding again. Mm-hmm. So the whole world knows that they're out and about, and now they're scared of them. At first, they were like, oh my gosh, they're real. And then they're scared of them. So our main character, her dad is dying with cancer, and she goes on this hunt to find a vampire, obviously, to like get turned so she can turn her dad to like save him from his terminal illness. And the premise was really good. I feel like some parts were really boring, and I was like rereading sentences. And then the ending, honestly, I would have liked a more morbid, dark ending than what happened. So I'll just leave that at that. But I gave it about 2.5 out of 5 stars. Probably wouldn't recommend it unless like you love vampire books, then you might be into it. I don't know. And then I had Happy Place by Emily Henry. This one was such a miss for me. Like I said, I only like rom-coms or any kind of romantic book when I'm laughing and or crying a lot. And I didn't do either. So it was just slow for no reason for me.
I was going to say, was it a slow burn?
It was just slow. I wasn't even burning because I'm like, I was waiting for the burn. I was waiting for the burn.
I feel like I have read a few Emily Henry books now, and I feel the same about every book. But I have Happy Place. So I feel like I have to read it because I have it on my shelf. But yeah, I also feel like I'm going to be... Yeah, I feel like I'm going to be disappointed.
I probably will not... Because I think this was supposed to be one of her more popular ones. I don't know if it's because it just came out or something.
I've read 2 by her that were both kind of the same slow burn. And I think that's just kind of what she does.
So I don't think I'm a slow burn person.
I'm not. I'm definitely not.
So I probably won't read any more of her. But if you are slow burn, she's probably great for you.
Yeah. I know a lot of people really love her books.
Yeah. I also read The Lost Apothecary, but I'm just going to tag mine onto yours because I've got one more book to go.
What did you give A Lost Apothecary? I gave it 5.
I gave it 4 out of 5. And I just, because I didn't like one of the characters at all or one of the storylines, for me, I could have done without.
Yeah.
And then Ghost Eaters. This one also had so much promise. So basically this group of friends, you know, they're like best friends in college, and then they grow older, and one of them develops a really bad drug addiction. And all of the 3 other friends are just taking turns like pulling him out of trouble and trying to keep him going straight. And then he ends up coming up with this like drug that basically lets you see dead people, and people can like get addicted to it. So a bunch of people are just seeing dead people throughout the book, but it just got really too out there when the guy who makes it also happened to be like one of the ex-boyfriends of one of the girls who's in this friend group. And shit's more of like, instead of it being like the idea of all of these people getting high and like seeing ghosts and like kind of their run-ins with these ghosts, it's more of like this girl processing the death of her lover, friend, you know, like college boyfriend. Mm-hmm. And it just got a little weird. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. It had potential, but I think we had too much going on that the author just like couldn't stick to something and hit it really hard. So
it's kind of how I felt about 20 years later. Just a lot going on.
Yeah, if they had just picked like one thing, I feel like we really could have made good progress on this book. But that's all I have for... Yes, this is all I have. And that's the end.
So thank you for tuning in to another episode of Your Bookshelf Besties. That was our September reading wrap up. Stay tuned for more episodes. Every Monday we're going to drop. Please comment below anything.
If you've read the books. If you agreed with
your
any
thoughts
of
on the books, on what we read.
Thoughts.
Maybe if you disagree, let us know. Change our minds. Sure, go for it. So, just drop anything below that you want us to talk about or any books that you recommend us to read and review, and we'll go ahead and do that for you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.